One of the biggest mysteries in the entire Naruto series isn't a hidden jutsu, a secret clan, or even an unknown villain. It's the prime of the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Because depending on when you ask the question in the series, Hiruzen is either one of the strongest shinobi to ever live, or a character that got completely overshadowed by later power scaling. But when you actually go back to the early lore, the databooks, and the statements made in the original series, it becomes clear that Prime Hiruzen was supposed to be an absolute monster. In fact, at one point in the story, he was literally implied to be stronger than the first and second Hokage themselves. So today, we're going to break down how strong Hiruzen Sarutobi likely was in his prime, using the lore we were given before all the Shippuden retcons started stacking up. First, we need to talk about Hiruzen's reputation, because in Naruto, reputation usually exists for a reason. Hiruzen wasn't just another Hokage. He was known across the shinobi world as the Professor. This nickname wasn't just for show. It was given to him because he supposedly mastered every single jutsu that existed within the Hidden Leaf Village. Let that sink in for a second. The Leaf Village contains techniques from dozens of clans, fire style from the Uchiha, shadow techniques from the Nara clan, expansion jutsu from the Akamichi, mind techniques from the Yamanaka, sealing techniques, barrier ninjutsu, and countless other abilities. And according to the lore, Hiruzen knew them all. That alone already places him in a ridiculous tier of shinobi. Most characters specialize in one or two fighting styles. Hiruzen's entire gimmick was complete mastery of ninjutsu as a whole, which is why he was called the Professor. That being said, you can equate this to Kakashi apparently knowing 1000 jutsu and him saying he knows how to use them all, but that was never really shown, so take that what you will. On top of that, Hiruzen was also confirmed to master all 5 chakra natures: fire, water, earth, wind, lightning. Now, this might not seem impressive today because by the time Shippuden rolls around, everyone and their grandma has multiple chakra natures, but in the original Naruto series, this was extremely rare. Most Jonin only had 1 or 2. Even extremely high level shinobi usually capped around 3, but Hiruzen had complete access to all 5 and he used them freely in combat. That means Prime Hiruzen essentially had an answer to almost any situation. Need overwhelming firepower? Fire release. Need terrain control? Earth release. His versatility alone made him one of the most dangerous shinobi imaginable. But the biggest piece of evidence for Prime Hiruzen's strength comes from something that a lot of fans forget. Early Naruto straight up implies that Hiruzen surpassed the first and second Hokage. Multiple statements in the original series refer to Hiruzen as the strongest Hokage aside from Minato. This is before Shippuden massively buffed characters like Hashirama and Tobirama Senju into near mythological figures. In the early lore, Hiruzen was portrayed as near peak of the Hokage line, meaning Prime Hiruzen was originally intended to be above both of them. Now obviously that doesn't hold up once Shippuden recontextualizes everything and turns Hashirama into a walking natural disaster. But if we analyze the narrative before those retcons, the intention was clear. Prime Hiruzen was supposed to represent the ultimate shinobi of the Hidden Leaf. Now let's look at the only real fight we have of Hiruzen, his battle against Orochimaru during the Konoha Crush. And here's the crazy part. Hiruzen was already an old man during this fight. He was well past his prime, his stamina was fading, and he even admits that his body can't keep up with the techniques he once used effortlessly. Yet despite all that, he still manages to fight Orochimaru while simultaneously dealing with the reanimated versions of Hashirama and Tobirama. Even though those Edo Tensei versions were weaker than their real selves, that's still an insane situation. Think about what that means. An elderly version of Hiruzen was holding off against Orochimaru, who's one of the legendary Sannin, the first Hokage and the second Hokage, all at the same time, and he was still able to push the fight far enough to seal Orochimaru's arms using the Reaper Death Seal. That's an insane feat considering his condition. If an old man and weakened Hiruzen could perform like that, imagine how dangerous he would have been decades earlier. Another thing that gets overlooked is Hiruzen's summoning contract with Enma. His summon, Enma, isn't just a regular animal summon. Enma is described as the Monkey King, and his staff transformation is one of the most durable weapons in the series. During the Orochimaru fight, Enma straight up states that the staff form is virtually indestructible. That means Prime Hiruzen was essentially fighting with a weapon that could smash through almost anything, and combined with his ninjutsu mastery, it made him extremely difficult to counter. There's also Hiruzen's experience factor. By the time we meet him, he has already lived through multiple shinobi wars and served as Hokage for decades. He was trained directly under Tobirama, meaning his foundation came from one of the most tactical shinobi ever, but unlike Tobirama, Hiruzen continued evolving long after his teacher died. Over time, he accumulated knowledge from every corner of the Hidden Leaf, which explains why he ended up mastering so many techniques. Prime Hiruzen wasn't just powerful, he was absurdly intelligent in combat. Now let's talk about scaling. Even as an old man, Hiruzen was still respected by characters like Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru. The legendary Sannin, some of the most strongest ninja in the world, still treated Hiruzen with utmost respect. That tells you a lot about the level he must have been operating at in his prime, because if those 3 monsters respecting him that much, it means Prime Hiruzen was likely well above Sannin. And remember, Orochimaru specifically waited until Hiruzen was old and weakened before making his move against the village. That's not a coincidence. Orochimaru knew that fighting Prime Hiruzen would have been a completely different story. So when we put it all together, Prime Hiruzen probably looks something like this: a shinobi with mastery over every chakra in nature, knowledge of nearly every jutsu within the village, elite combat intelligence, a nearly indestructible summon weapon, decades of battle experience, and according to the early narrative, the title of the strongest Hokage of his time. That's not just strong, that's borderline broken, especially if you want to consider the fact that if he was able to produce multiple shadow clones along with his chakra natures, and he wasn't limited to how many clones he could produce, he would have been an insane beast. The unfortunate reality is that we never actually got to see Prime Hiruzen in action. By the time the series starts, he's already an old man nearing the end of his life, and once Hashirama Senju gets massively buffed in Shippuden, the earlier statements about Hiruzen being the strongest Hokage start to look like obvious retcons. But if the original lore had stayed consistent, Prime Hiruzen would probably be remembered today as one of the most powerful shinobi in ninja history. Instead, he became one of the series' biggest what-if characters, a legend whose true strength we only ever got to hear about, but never actually see. The only thing we've seen of him is being a terrible father figure to everyone around him.